It's crunch time in fantasy football world, and the Fantasy GOAT is here to help. From Bucky Irving's impending return to what to do with Brian Thomas Jr. and so much more, the panel has you covered. Week 11 is here. Let's roll.
Who starts? Who sits? And how to become the greatest of all time. This is the Fantasy GOAT, sponsored by La Bonita Supermarkets.
Hello and welcome. This is the Fantasy GOAT. I'm your host, Mike Davis, here with a great panel of fantasy football experts. Joining the show today, we have Ritchie, co-founder of Full-Time Fantasy and a former #1 ranked fantasy player in the entire world. Plus, Cruzen with Full-Time Fantasy and Sports Illustrated. And joining us all the way from Chicago, Dr. Nithin Natwa at Fantasy Docs on social media, a must follow. Great to have you guys here with us. So let's kick this off with a quarterback question. I'm curious, long-term outlook here. Moving forward the rest of the season, who would you rather have as your quarterback? Matt Stafford, Drake Maye, or Justin Herbert? Sean, kick us off.
Yeah, Mike, I'm a little biased on this one. I ignored all the back issues, the hype this summer, and he's my highest owned quarterback among my 37 high-stakes fantasy teams, so I have him everywhere. He has the best weapons around him with Puka Nacua and Davante Adams. He also has an RB1 in Kyron Williams, which opens up the passing game with all the play action. It's very close between the three of them. We have them all ranked rest of the season as top 12. But for me, I'm pushing all my chips in on Stafford. It's going to make a huge difference in my fantasy, but I also believe for the listeners and the viewers that, I would go with Stafford the rest of the way.
Yeah, I'm a big Stafford guy. I love him both in fantasy world and in the professional league. But, I don't have any of them, and I wish I really did. So, Dr. Natwa, do you have any of these guys, and who do you love?
Yeah, just like Sean, I love Stafford. I'm biased as well just because I'm a huge Detroit fan, and we love him out in Detroit. But once again, with those back things, he has back arthritis, and then it was kind of lost in the shuffle, but the LA bought this rejuvenation chamber, which is like a $150K device.
Wow.
And the thing about back arthritis is that it flares up. It causes symptoms during game day. But this rejuvenation chamber had red light therapy. It had microwave therapy, a lot of stuff that's considered experimental, but actually does show benefit in terms of short-term recovery. So within 24 hours, you get relief. And that's not great for the normal person who, wants relief for weeks at a time or months at a time. But when you're talking about a quarterback who just needs to be good for game day,
right.
I saw that and I'm like, he's good. He's going to be pain-free on game day. And he's a stud. People forget that he he had Megatron, but he also created Megatron. He had Cooper Kupp. He created Triple Crown there. He's doing the same thing with Puka. So I'm huge with Stafford. And as soon as I heard they got that machine, I was high on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, we forget so much just how great of a player he is, #1 pick, and he's done so much great work at the quarterback level, and he keeps doing it as he gets older and older. And, Ian, it's crazy because it seems like he's always an afterthought in these drafts, and you're lucky if you scooped him up, and I think early on, a lot of people probably got him just off waivers.
I think there's a lot of waivers. And first off, I'd like to say that what Doc just said is the exact reason why everybody should follow Doc on social media.
Right.
It's great information. It's very helpful. And I think if a lot of people knew that, they wouldn't have been afraid to draft him.
Right.
So shout out to Doc for that one. And look, he does have the best weapons around him. Stafford does. He's a great quarterback. But they're really three different guys, right? Like, as it gets colder, I think Maye will get more rushing yards. And I like that, right? And all these things, it's a guarantee you can hang your hat on.
Right.
Herbert's going to throw for a lot of yards. He has good receivers, better than New England, and he'll run, right? Stafford's not going to run at all, but man, he's going to sling that thing all around the yard, and it is tough to stop. And in my opinion, they're the best team in that league, and Stafford's going to keep going.
Yeah, and it's true, because Dr. Natwa was saying it's not just Stafford about producing for himself, but look at Davante Adams the past few years. I mean, we're removed from the Davante Adams from Green Bay. So over the course of these past few seasons, he didn't have the numbers he had when he didn't have Stafford. And now you put Davante in a situation where he's in LA, he's got Stafford. People who have Davante are very happy about that. So it's interesting stuff, but everybody here, it's unanimous on the panel. Everybody's choosing Stafford over Maye and Herbert. Guys, don't go anywhere because we're talking about two critical running backs after the break.
You're watching the Fantasy G.O.A.T, sponsored by La Bonita Supermarkets.
Oh, this is going to be a good one. I need a lot of help personally and selfishly in this block alone, but I think a lot of people are going to be feeling it like me. So 2 guys on the mind of all fantasy managers right now is really Bucky Irving and TreVeyon Henderson. But we're going to start with Bucky Irving. So Dr. Natwa, I have Bucky Irving in like 3 leagues. I'm not kidding. And this guy has just been sitting on my bench because of all this injury issue that we're dealing with. And I didn't scoop up Sean Tucker. I didn't scoop up Rashad White. So it's been a really I'm a bit bummed out about this situation. So tell me, is there any salvation for fantasy managers who have Bucky Irving? What's your take on the situation?
So we were talking about this in the pre-show, and Sean actually mentioned that, the shoulder seems to be more of the issue. And actually, right when the injury happened around week 4, Bulls said that the shoulder was more of a concern than the foot, which was a huge red flag to me at that time, because at that time, the report was that he was dealing with a midfoot sprain, which is extremely serious injury that typically causes the multi-week absence in running backs. So when he's talking that a shoulder injury, which usually is more mild, is the more serious one, that was kind of an indication that Bucky was going to be out for a while. So everyone's super excited that he's back at practice, but he's not doing anything with that shoulder. He's on his feet, but we're not really worried about the feet. I've been thinking that he has a partial thickness rotator cuff tear of his shoulder, and we're not seeing that range of motion that puts it at risk, which is basically the shoulder in extension and abduction between 30 and 60 degrees. So once we see that, then I think that that's a huge green flag. Or obviously if he's able to tolerate practicing in pads, but he was already ruled out on Friday. It wasn't even like it was a game time decision. So it's not that he is definitely not coming back this season. It's that we don't know. He needs to show that he can handle contact in pads. And if he doesn't, I think he's going to go for surgery.
Wow. So there's a chance. I mean, it could really go either way. He might not come back at all. And, he might come back in some form or even late in the season, but it's difficult because as a fantasy owner you're just kind of like, well, I would rather just know that he's not coming back so I could drop him and not have my hopes up. But Sean, what's your take on the situation with Bucky? Do you have any Bucky, and how do you feel?
Yeah, I actually have Bucky, a lot of Bucky shares, and I'm going to lean on the doc. To Ian's point, everybody should follow the doctor because this is the type of information we need. I, being, an unmedically trained professional, I thought Bucky'd be back this week, and I'm totally disappointed with the news today. So when he does finally return, he's a plug-and-play RB2. You're going to set him and forget him every week, but the question is, when's he going to come back?
Yeah. And Ian, let's move on to TreVeyon Henderson because TreVeyon's a guy who people were super stoked about this guy coming into the league as a rookie, preseason action. He looked really good, and he started creeping up on draft boards. He was going 4th, 5th round in a lot of leagues. I think I even saw 3rd in some leagues. And now, after all these months and weeks of people dropping him, calling him a bust, all of a sudden the guy explodes. And he really looks like he's got so much talent as a pass catcher, as a rusher. Is he a league winner for a lot of fantasy managers?
If Ramondre Stevenson stays out for the rest of the season, he is 100% a league winner. My concern is nothing more than when they bring the veteran back.
Yeah.
How many carries is he going to steal? Is he going to steal the goal line carries? Are you going to be a 3rd down back? Are you going to get 40% snap share? That's going to be the real thing to keep an eye on. And I think that he has proven himself in a lot of ways as a receiver. He got a lot of really tough yards watching him play. He's getting yards after contact. He's running really hard. And, the first half of the season for the fantasy managers that were not patient with him, and I'm sure you're regretting it, just always remember some of the rookies start a little slower than the other guys, and you have to be patient with them. Just because they're behind some of the other rookies, and we had talked about this previously, the Amari and Hamptons and other folks, doesn't mean they're a bust early in the season. You have to give them time to get their legs under them. And once they do, a lot of times they start becoming the league winners at the end of the season for you.
So typically, is your advice for fantasy managers, you draft these guys, but maybe you're not starting them early in the season. You're housing them on your bench.
You got to take your medicine, and you're getting them to get you over the line at the end of the year. And that's really what you're hoping. You're hoping that these guys give that energy and that push, and the type of game that TreVeyon Henderson is putting together like last week, where he's scoring a lot of points for you, helping you get your wins at the end of the regular season when you're trying to battle for playoffs, trying to battle for your league championship.
Yeah, it's 100% true. And, Dr. Natwa, I'll go to you real quickly before we go to the break. How much TreVeyon Henderson do you have, and do you really believe in him? Because even early in the season, he had a lot of fumbling issues, and he was being, punished, rightly so, perhaps, being taken out of games and that kind of stuff. But do you really believe this is a guy who could become a league winner for a lot of folks?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And it just really lends to Ian's point of if Ramondre can come back. And we've seen turf toe, obviously, and players like Purdy hold them out for extremely long periods of time. We saw Ramondre return back on Monday and log 2 limited practices, but then they ruled him out pretty soon after that. So with how this injury lingers, I think we'll get at least another week of TreVeyon, but we all know that Vrabel loves his vets. So if he comes back, I do think he's going to start vulturing some of those goal line carries.
Okay. All right. We'll keep an eye on that issue, guys. When we come back, we have more Fantasy GOAT. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. This week, our Commissioner's Choice Award goes to New England running back TreVeyon Henderson. We've been talking about him all show. The rookie had himself a big night on Thursday Night Football, scoring 3 touchdowns and a total of 93 yards for 32 fantasy points. And now, for the Commissioner's Choice of the Week from La Bonita, let's go shopping. Mike Davis here at La Bonita in Green Valley. 7 locations, 8 coming. I'm here hanging out with Armando. Armando, right now we see out in the culture, everybody's talking about the trend of birria, but you guys have birria from the beginning here at La Bonita. Tell us what birria is and how we can join the action.
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely a new trend. You see it everywhere around town. Birria originally comes from Jalisco, Mexico, but it's everywhere now, right? And everyone has their variations. And when I was growing up, this is how we ate it in our family. It was with rice and beans, and it was kind of a plate like this, right? Nowadays, you see it kind of the red taco. That's what you see everywhere. I think that's the big trend. That's what's blowing up everywhere. This is pretty much a quesadilla, but everyone calls them birria tacos. It's cheese. We get the tortillas, we cook it in the sauce that we actually make the birria in, and then we bake with the cheese on there, the beef, and everyone loves it, right?
It's like
delicious.
A meat stew, and it even originally was goat, right? Which is great for the Fantasy GOAT.
So next time someone's talking trash in your league and they call themselves the GOAT, tell them you're going to make birria out of that goat next week.
There you go. So you got the combo plate, you got the quesadilla taco concept that everybody's jumping on, plus you got the whole family experience. But the best part is you can get this right to your door. You could be sitting on your sofa watching Sunday football, and how do you get it right to your door?
You can order on shoplabonita.com, and an Uber Eats is probably, if you're out there on Sunday and you're ready for the game, Uber Eats is the fastest option for you right now.
Okay, I can't wait till Sunday football though, so I'm going to dive in right now, guys. Birria, La Bonita, Fantasy GOAT. You got to get that dip in there. Oh, I'm all about. Holy.
You're watching the Fantasy GOAT, sponsored by La Bonita Supermarkets.
All right, so welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Fantasy GOAT. Mike Davis here with you. So big news out of Jacksonville. Lots of changes. Rookie wide receiver and cornerback Travis Hunter, he's now out for the year. And they just traded with Vegas for Jacoby Myers. So fantasy managers are curious what this all is going to mean for Brian Thomas Jr., a guy who was being drafted very highly in fantasy drafts, 2nd round, 1st round in some leagues. So, Ian, tell us, what kind of production can we expect from Brian Thomas Jr.? Can he return to everything we thought he was going to be at the beginning of the season?
I've lost all faith, to be honest. I watch a player who should be a wide receiver number 1, who's playing like a wide receiver 4 or 5 on a fantasy team, and I have no excitement. He looks to me like he's moving half speed.
Yeah.
He's not making plays on the ball. Earlier in the season, Lawrence isn't the best guy to deliver the ball, but there was a lot of plays being made early in the season. Man-on-man plays downfield, separation on slants. He's just not getting it. He's not putting the effort in. He looks like he's pouting to me at this point. I want nothing to do with him on a fantasy league. And to be honest, if I'm a coach, I'm surprised he wasn't moved at the trade deadline. I know that Hunter is hurt, and Hunter really started coming on and doing an amazing job, which should give them more flexibility to get rid of Brian Thomas Jr.
So what's your advice, Ian, for a guy like me who's got him in 2 leagues? You still are holding on to hope that, you can't forget the fact that you invested so much draft capital in this guy. You drafted him so early, but you don't want to keep being faced with the issue of starting him or not starting him because you feel like an idiot if he's going to pop off. So would you just advise a guy like me to just bench him until you see something different?
He's one of those frustrating guys you suffer from name bias, right? He's still Brian Thomas Jr., so you feel like you're supposed to put him in your lineup every week.
But you shouldn't.
But you shouldn't, and he just sits there, and so he becomes an enigma. And the problem is, and I'm just going to say it, you're just better off cutting guys like that and not sitting on your bench because he's a rock, and he's not going to help your team. And you're better off with a backup running back with a high upside or somebody else that can actually propel you at the end of the year. Because if I don't have confidence in somebody to get me more than 15 or 20 points or to at least go off 1 week for a playoff run, then I don't want him.
So you're saying you would start like a Justice Hill over like a Brian Thomas Jr.?
I don't know about a Justice Hill because Keaton Mitchell's taken some stuff there, but I would just tell you this, on a personal level, on our full-time fantasy rankings, we have him as a wide receiver 4 or a wide receiver 5 at this point.
Wow.
And he's just not startable. And so that name bias makes you feel guilty about not starting him, and it forces you to put him in your lineup sometimes. And so that's why I say sometimes you're better off just cutting bait.
Wow, that's crazy.
I would say this,
advice.
If you're in a best ball league,
yes,
do not cut him. If you're in best ball, hang on to him. I'm okay with that. But if you have to put somebody in your lineup each week, I don't feel good about it.
Okay, I like hearing these big takes. Dr. Natwa, what's your take on him? Because, listen, he did have some issues injury-wise at the beginning of the year, a lot of drops. Do you have any faith in him now with Travis Hunter out, but now Jacoby Myers coming in?
Yeah, so Ian actually nailed it on the head. People have lost faith in Brian Thomas. When I put up videos on him, the views are not there. People aren't even interested in seeing what's happening with him.
Really?
Which is wild to me because
they've given up.
Bucky, it'll be 100K views regardless. I could say Bucky's out to lunch and it'll be 100K. But yeah, Brian Thomas, he had that wrist injury supposedly, and then he had some possible hospital balls and seemed to get nervous after that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the talent was there last season, and it doesn't seem to be there this season. And then they signed Jacoby, and Jacoby immediately came in and produced. And we haven't seen a game like that from Brian Thomas, maybe like 1 or 2 all year. So we saw Ladd come out of his slump and start turning it up, and we haven't seen the same thing from Brian Thomas. And I agree. I don't think that he is. It would be hard to cut him, but I'm just a more emotional person.
Right. I know. I'm like you. I hold on, I'm sentimental, even with my fantasy players. Sean, are you same vibe as everybody else here?
Absolutely. I have no confidence going forward with Brian Thomas Jr. He's currently wide receiver 41 on the year in fantasy. So, I don't have any confidence. I'm with the doctor and Ian on this. I did draft him on a couple teams just from FOMO.
Right.
I had to, and I hold on to him like you because of the name. So he reminds me of a younger version of Calvin Ridley or Jerry Jeudy. You look at him, you want to start him every week, but you just can't.
It makes a lot of sense.
He does have a path to relevancy with the Hunter injury, but he's a sit until he proves it kind of receiver for me.
It's so weird how he came out so strong from LSU and had a tremendous rookie year, but now it's a totally different story in year 2. Coming up next, guys, we're talking about another rookie, this time from Chicago.
You're watching the Fantasy G.O.A.T, sponsored by La Bonita Supermarkets.
The Chicagoland area is falling for Loveland. Yeah, Colston, that is. The rookie tight end is starting to heat up the past 2 weeks. And Dr. Natwa, I'm curious what you think. Are you sold on Loveland as a big contributor for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I am. I think that offense is slowly coming together and gelling. And I talked about this at the beginning of the season. I think that Caleb is a stellar quarterback, and they will be able to build an offense around him. And it seems like that's finally coalescing, which as a Detroit fan, I'm not super thrilled about, but it is what it is.
Right.
But yeah, Loveland in a tight end market that's not too great is a starter, in my opinion, the rest of the way.
Yeah, and, he just pops. He does have a lot of athleticism. There is that potential like we saw a few weeks ago where he can just shake off a tackle and dart to the end zone and get a big big gain. So, Cruzen, do you feel the same way? Because there's a lot of guys on bye. I have a lot of Tyler Warren. He's on bye. Juwan Johnson's on bye. So there's a lot of people on bye. Now Dalton Kincaid is out. So a lot of people are looking for options. I saw even Noah Fant and Colston Loveland on some waiver wires. I'm trying to decide, do I go safe or do I go for the big play? What would you do?
You know, this one's personal to me, Mike. I had drafted Loveland in the 11th, 12th round all summer long. And after his terrible first 6 weeks, I dropped him everywhere. So it's like breaking up with an ex-girlfriend. I'm not going back. So I'm going to differ from the doc on this one just for personal reasons. He's also ranked tight end 26. I mean, he's behind guys like Noah Fant on the year. So for me, when I draft quarterbacks in fantasy, I want to make sure they're either the number 2 or at least a high-end number 3 receiver on their teams. Yeah. So this year I was taking Kyle Pitts. I was taking Travis Kelce in those middle rounds because I know they're either the number 2 or number 3 option on their teams. Where with Loveland, we've got a Dunze, we have DJ Moore, we even have Zacchaeus in the mix, so, and Cole Kmet. So for me, I'm off of Loveland. He's an ex-girlfriend, and I'm out.
Okay, no ex-girlfriends for Sean Cruzen. Real quick, we got 1 minute, Ian. What's your take?
I think he has a few things going for him. Ben Johnson loves to, as the coach, loves to throw the tight end, as we saw with Laporta before. So he has that going for him. And I think their defense is so bad as a rush defense and a pass defense at 25 and 26, I think.
They'll be on the field.
There's going to be some high-scoring games. So I think he has those things going for him. He's far from a set and forget for me. He is a matchup guy for me. I'm more comfortable in a best ball than other things with him. But I'm comfortable having on my team as one of 2 tight ends and just playing him in matchups and high totals, like potentially this weekend when they have a high total against the Minnesota.
Okay. So. All right. A lot of good advice. A lot of good advice all around every week on the Fantasy Go. I want to thank my great panel, Dr. Nithin Natwa at Fantasy Docs, and from Full Time Fantasy, Sean Cruzen and Ian Ritchie. I'm Mike Davis. We'll see you next time here on the Fantasy Go.